Hi, my name is Bethany, and today I want to talk to you about the autistic dark web, commonly abbreviated to ADW. Now, this is something I've heard only a little bit about, mostly through Twitter. In fact, the Twitter community when it comes to autism is quite thriving, vocal, active. I don't know. So if you don't have a Twitter account, you might check out doing that, and if you do, you should totally follow me while you're there. Anyway, what is the autistic dark web? So to answer this question, I decided to look into the person that people pointing to as like the leader, or the person who seemed to at least be promoting those ideals the most. Clemens is the self-declared leader of the autistic dark web movement, which is basically an anti-neurodiversity movement. He believes that the neurodiversity movement is too broad and it would require people to basically celebrate people who are like narcissistic, and you know, most people wouldn't do that. So he believes that because of that, it's hypocritical and kind of pointless and maybe just an exercise in trying to feel like a special group. He is a big proponent for splitting up the autism spectrum again, making sure that Asperger's is its own thing, and that making sure that stuff like functioning labels, severely autistic, stuff like that, that they are defined clearly, instead of maybe right now where we have the autism spectrum, and if you have Asperger's, you are autistic, and if you have what would be profound or severe autism, you're autistic, and everything in between is autistic. And he feels like that's really too broad. He feels like it marginalizes people who experience the severe end of being autistic. People have accused him of having alt-right ideals. They've said that he's a bully, that he's even dabbled in eugenics. Honestly, with a brief look at his Twitter, he kind of seems like one of those people who really likes to do the hot take on things that's against the norm, kind of poke at people, get people kind of riled up and angry about the way he puts things. For example, he simply condemns Greta Thunberg because of her kind of alarmist way of going about things, instead of also showing the balance of like, wow, this person's actually like doing a lot to bring attention to this issue. He's just like, you did a terrible job because you're alarmist. And so when people do those kind of statements, a lot of people get offended and kind of upset. So I think he's kind of one of those people who's totally fine with starting a fire and sparking, you know, a fire and making people mad and angry. And that's just kind of, I think, his thing, to be a controversial person. And I think he kind of enjoys it. And while he may have some questionable views on things, but we're not really going to delve into those that are not relevant to specifically the autistic dark web, because that's kind of what we're looking at right now. Many who oppose him and his ideology say that he's just trying to basically re-stigmatize autism. He published an article that was hosted on The Guardian not too long ago that had a lot of people up in arms, where he basically said that autism doesn't really have that much of a meaning anymore because the spectrum is too broad and people are self-diagnosing, and he even basically said that people are trying to wear it as a fashionable badge, which very much is not true. The world that we live in, autism is still quite stigmatizing, and a lot of people don't want to hear like, ooh, autistic, like, oh, that's kind of, so for him to like worry about that's kind of weird, but I can understand where his concern comes from. Either way, he made a lot of bold claims and statements that had a lot of people very upset. He also criticized the neurodiversity movement, saying that basically they deny that autism is in any way a disability. Of course, then they clapped back and said, of course they know it's a disability, and all of that jazz. So the movement actually used to be called neurorealism, but I guess at some point there was a joke about calling it the autistic dark web based off of Eric Weinstein's intellectual dark web, and apparently the name stuck. Now, amongst things on his feed, he retweeted an article, and someone else had tweeted that article, and they said that basically no wonder the person had submitted it anonymously, because those who believe in neurodiversity would come and attack them. Basically, this article was from a family of an autistic child who would be considered more severely autistic. He constantly self-harm stims, constantly vocal stims, is considered kind of aggressive sometimes, isn't very clear on communication, especially spoken communication. And so they were kind of tired of getting all of these articles and news things sent to them about inspirational autism stories, stories of these autistics who rose above and became these great people, when they're feeling like, wow, you know what a great accomplishment of it was for him to say the word drink. And so that was really rough for them because they felt like they were being left out, and they felt like when they said he's autistic, they thought, you know, other people were thinking, well, that's just a cop-out because of all these great autistic people who've done great things. And so they felt kind of like their voices were being shut out when other people who were able to accomplish great things, a different part of the spectrum, were basically maybe misrepresenting autism or something to that effect. And I think that's the basis of this ordeal. The autistic dark web doesn't want for autism to become a meaningless word. They want to make sure that people who have not been able to successfully communicate their needs and wants and desires, etc., who have not been able to successfully go do things and do what we would consider productive things or whatnot. The movement doesn't want those people to be left out. They don't want them to become marginalized and their experiences as well as their family. They don't want people to romanticize autism and make it seem perfect, lovely, shiny, wonderful, just a superpower, and leave out the ugly side of things. The neurodiversity movement tends to want to destigmatize autism and kind of amplify the voices of those who are non-speaking and help people understand that just because someone doesn't speak using words, that that person isn't, you know, not there or not intelligent or not worthy of being alive. So these two movements are really kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum. They're both concerned about not including certain people. They're both concerned about what autism means to them and what autism means to the general public. Both are concerned about having the needs of autistic people met and having all the voices there and participating in the conversation. Now, part of the reason why Clemens is so maybe active in this idea is because he is on the spectrum, or he says he is. A lot of people keep saying that. I mean, I feel like if we believe people, that we should give him that benefit too. So he's autistic, but he also has, I believe, a younger brother who is autistic, and he experiences what people would consider the more severe end or the negative things more frequently. And so he feels like we are, you know, we're definitely experiencing autism very differently, so this can't both be autism. So he's trying to say like what his brother has is autism, and he loves his little brother very much and doesn't want his voice to be left out. Now these two groups, the neurodiversity movement and the autistic dark web, they kind of clash at each other in very childish ways. They go after each other on Twitter, make, you know, shocking comments to each other, block each other, you know, do all the things people do when they don't agree with each other. And so really I think both sides can be accused of that bullying. A lot of people try to say that this person makes life difficult for any autistics who are self-advocates.
I just wanted to add really quickly that one such example of this did happen pretty recently, where basically people who consider themselves a part of the autistic dark web went ahead and found documents online to do with like court stuff of an individual who is considered an autistic advocate, also a parent of autistic children, and basically spread it around online, you know, with that person's name attached and everything, just to damage them, just to hurt them, and just to like I don't know, just to be awful human beings, basically. It wasn't really relevant to what was going on or anything. It wasn't like they were trying to debunk claims. It was just out of malice. So this kind of tactic is what I would consider bullying. Obviously, this could have occurred in different ways on both sides. So if you're a person part of the autistic dark web or the neurodiversity movement or any person anywhere, let's not be total jerks and do things like this. This is considered bullying, in my opinion, doing things just out of malice, just out of spite, just to hurt people, and is really not doing anything productive or helpful for anyone, just to cause harm. So don't be like that. There are documented cases like this with people in the autistic dark web, but again, jerks and bullies can obviously be a part of any movement.
But either way, I think it's frustrating because we're all working for kind of the same thing. We want everyone's voices to be heard and everyone to be valued and taken care of. But we don't always manage to do that because we're autistic, and we have a bit of a problem with that black and white thinking and that tunnel vision. So we think, you know, like, if this is my experience or the experience of someone with me, then everyone is like that. And then we also tend to think that if you're not 100% for us in this one thing, then you're the enemy or a bad person. So a lot of times neurodiversity a lot of times does leave out the parents and blames the parents for not accommodating enough or not doing enough. And where maybe the autistic dark web might say the parents are just fine, the autistic needs to be fixed. And so like everyone's just like at each other, and it's terrible and I don't like it. I think there are valid points on both ends. I'm probably more of a centrist when it comes to this issue. I think accommodations are definitely something that should be a thing. After all, autism is a disability and it's okay to have accommodations, but it's also okay to understand that the people who love those people, the family, the parents, are probably trying to do their best that they know how, and they love their children. I just think that coming at it from a neurotypical perspective of like fixing them, or they're broken, or they're just diseased freaks, I don't think that's a productive way of going about things, and we also don't see that scientifically supported. So it's interesting because everyone has an argument and everyone has a little bit of science to back them up on their particular arguments, but I wouldn't say that Clemens is a wonderful person, but I also don't think like he's the worst person on the planet Earth, like people might say. So the autistic dark web, even though it has kind of an ominous sounding name, I don't think it's like the actual like dark web like some people kind of try to put it to be. I think it's more just like an anti-neurodiversity movement, basically being very critical of anything that is a flaw in neurodiversity, and again really wanting to bring voices out for those who they feel are being possibly marginalized by just highlighting the good parts of autism. At the end of the day, let's not be stupid about things. Understand that we think differently. We see the world differently from person to person. Yes, in general, autistics do from neurotypicals, but also autistics and neurotypicals are all individuals, and we all have different perspectives and ideas and beliefs, and just attacking each other without understanding the whole picture isn't going to help anybody. So there you go. That's what I've learned about the autistic dark web. It's just a thing that was made in reaction really to the neurodiversity movement. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy hearing autism related content from me, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I do upload every Thursday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time to the best of my ability. And also, because I always forget this, if you're interested in supporting me monetarily, you can totally check out my Patreon and see if that's interesting to you or not. Also, obviously, those of you who are just here and interact with my channel, you guys are amazing. I love you so much. And I guess I'll see you in my next video. Bye!